You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Got another podcast coming out right now, and it's with my good friend Tyler Horton. I actually know you from me being a child, but you're one of my dad's close friends.
Well, Robbie, good to be with you, man, here on Out of the Blank. I appreciate you having me as a guest. I've known you since pretty much you were in the crib, my friend. It's been a long time.
You're basically like a second dad to me, like a big uncle.
Yeah, I'm the big uncle that's not allowed at the family gatherings for food because nope, he eats too much, but they love me otherwise. So it's definitely all good. But I appreciate you having me on, man. And Out of the Blank, you've been doing some good things with this.
I've been trying to get it moving. I just figured out at a young age, I've said it before, but like 20 years old, I realized everyone's got a nice little story to tell, and it's how they shape them into either what the passions they're trying to pursue. And I think that's what interests me the most. And figures both my parents were in radio, I would end up picking up the concept of doing something with my voice. But
it was bound to happen. I mean, it's genetic, my friend.
now what I want to talk to you about, because you met my dad through radio, you would say, right?
I'll tell you, with your dad, I met him, and literally it has been 20 years since I've known him. It was back in 1999 when I first moved to Ocean City. I'd been really living in Ocean City in 1999, and I was working at a place called Brewmaster's Pub in downtown Ocean City. It's where this Wild Bill's bar is now, down by Wacomico Street, just that general area. And your dad had left a job at 96 Rock at the time to become the program director of a station X1069, where we all came together. And I happened to be just nerve-wracked at the time. I'm like, oh God, a new guy's coming in. We're all going to lose our jobs. And it's, I met your dad at a Molly Hatchet concert way back when in 1999 at Brewmasters. And the first thing I asked him, I didn't even say, hey, I was like, are you gonna fire me? He's like, I just met you, dude. Calm down. And then your dad and I kind of hit it off. And of course, we worked together throughout the years, probably well over close to 15, 16 years we worked together in radio. And of course, he's one of my oldest friends. And I've got to meet you and watch you grow up through him.
And it's crazy because growing up, like, I never really knew exactly what he did. Besides, I just saw him as the guy that was on the radio, but everyone knew him as this popular icon down here.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I wanted to ask you with being on the radio and really focusing on the voice aspect of it, because I find when I edit my podcast, I hate my voice. Even though people say I have a good radio type voice, I'm more likely just try to talk. But I notice there's two ways you can kind of take your radio personality. One, you can do what basically every average person that's on the radio does, where they go, "You're now listening to," and then they do like a weird but that's
twins to it.
Yeah, kind of that. But I feel like I like to be a little bit more real when it comes to just talking and leveling with somebody.
Then you pretty much were taken directly after your dad, because when I first learned from him, your dad is and always will be the best teacher I've ever had in that business. He took me under his wing because I've been on the air for a couple of years, but I haven't really had somebody to direct me around 1999, 2000. And then your dad took me under his wing and just taught me, just be yourself on the microphone. Much like you're saying, it's like we're just having this conversation right now. It's not like, hey, Robbie, how you doing, buddy? We're going to sit here and talk about all the specials going on. Did you have a great day, pal?
Did I win free tickets to something?
Yeah, that's right. You're caller number 7. Because that's a bunch of bullshit. You really don't want that. It's not real. And just being yourself, your dad has a very good gift with that. Excuse me.
No problem. See, it's funny because everyone always asks me, like, when it comes down to editing my podcast or something, like, why don't I ever edit out the ums or the buts? I'm like, I don't know. It feels like I'm taking the pure essence out of the conversation, because it is nice sometimes, not to hear but like over and over again. But when it's a conversation that's flowing between me and you, we get into this jive. And I feel like if I even stick my hands in the creation that we're making, it's a little bit like messing with the flow of things. I don't really like that.
That's actually the beauty of podcasting, more so than actually being on a commercial station where you have to edit stuff because you have to watch your time frames, with commercials around everything, and you have to kind of fit things into segments. So podcasts, you can definitely be more free. And I agree with you. You might hear the from whomever, but it's definitely it's a better flow of conversation indeed, like you're saying.
And it's cool because when I listen to it, and then when someone else listens to it, we're getting two different reactions on it. I know everything. If I would have edited it out, I would have known every mistake, every part where it should have been edited, every part where there should have been something like, kind of connecting it through. But when the other person's listening to it, it doesn't matter if it's an hour, if it's 2 hours long. It's basically something you can listen to if you got time to kill. I don't have a set agenda when I come on here. I'm really just trying to get everybody's story heard and listen to everybody's story myself and gather in my own experience. Like when I'm asking you something, it's everything I want to know. We don't have to worry about these people listening. We just have to, it's just a conversation between me and you. And that's the main factor I try and get out with the podcast, especially when inviting people over. It gets a little difficult because everyone's like, I'm not good at interviews. I'm like, don't think of it like that. You're talking to Robbie, just talk to Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, just basically, like, we're just sitting here chatting right now. Oh, hey, there's a microphone in the room.
I literally feel like we're camping again when we used to go on those camping trips, sitting by a bonfire right now. I feel like I should just light the coffee table on fire right now.
No, then you really are taking after your dad if you're going to light that on fire.
Any stories you want to let me in on?
No. Podcasts are not up in pleading the fifth on that one. But
It's like the secret of Flytrap. I still don't even know the full agenda of that. It's like a little dark secret my dad's afraid to tell me.
No, but like I said, your dad, best teacher I've had. He's one of my best friends in the world, and he's still doing very good things. He's done well with keeping the local aspect of radio over the years with all the stations around here. A lot of them have just gotten so commercialized. You basically are listening to an iPod. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But your dad has done a good job of wherever he's gone, keeping it on a local aspect.
Now, when you got into radio, was that something you've always wanted to pursue? Like, have you always been, I mean, you're obviously a very communicative person. Like, you like communicating with everybody and being the funny guy in the room, kind of like how I was. I was always a bit of a class clown type. I always wanted to go for the laugh and try and make someone smile. Is that something you got from childhood experience? Like, either being a family influence? Nobody in your family was probably radio, I'm guessing.
No, I'll give you a bit. Surprisingly, with my family background, it is newspapers. My grandmother was the first ever female writer for the Daily Times.
Really?
In Salisbury. She was the first ever female columnist for them. Way back in the 1930s, I want to say it was, that she was the columnist for them. And my dad, I mean, a fair amount of people know what my dad does, but my dad is an award-winning author in his own right. He's written for National Geographic, Rolling Stone. He's written 8 books. He's countless. He wrote for the Baltimore Sun for 25 years. So he's a highly regarded journalist. And I had designs on possibly getting into that part of journalism, but as you can tell, I like to talk. People are like, hey, boy, maybe you should be in radio because, God, you sure do talk a lot. And I'm just, after a while, I'm like, okay, maybe I should. And I took it up in Frostburg. I went to Frostburg State for my first year and a half of college back in 1996 through 1997, about middle of 97, before I had to come back. And I was on a sports show up there, something called the Bleacher Preachers. It was me and a couple of guys just talking sports, which is, I like to talk sports.
Yeah.
And just happened to talk sports, and I just caught the bug then of being on the air. And I came back to finish school at Salisbury University. I went from 1998 to 2000. And then there was a recruitment fair for interns in, I want to say, the summer of 1999 with X1069. I just happened to end up being an intern there around 1999, and I never left. Like, I stayed with that station until it ended in 2007, and then went with your dad over at Ocean 98 and stayed there until 2013. Went through 93.5 The Beach and a few other stations as well, and have ended up right now with the Delmarva Shorebirds as their announcer.
Yeah, that's right. I went to the baseball game with my dad one time, and I heard your voice, and he's like, "You know who that is?" I'm like, "I know who that is. That's Tyler."
You know,
Immediately, you close your eyes and you can just tell.
yeah,
But it's funny because, in a way, you kind of picked up the same similarities from where your mother and father kind of, because your dad likes to express his communication in words through writing and text, and then you like to experience it more with your mouth and vocalization.
yeah. And the thing is with my dad is that he is an incredible speaker. I mean, he's actually he's done a series of movies right now, like regional movies about the environment, because that's his specialty. He's an environmental scientist, environmental writer, and whenever I go to hear him speak, I'm like, wow, this is the same guy I can't get 2 or 3 words out of at the house when I go to visit him. But then when you get him in front of
Piece of paper or a pencil.
yeah, and
Just writing
when
down
he's in
full
front of a
text.
camera, I mean, it's absolutely incredible to watch him. So I guess I was fortunate enough to get a bit of a gift of gab, so to speak, from him, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Is it a passion that you want to keep on pursuing for the kind of the rest of your days, like kind of live it out?
I will say this about radio: you never know if I'll go back full time. I'm not sure if I will do that because I've been in the business a long time, and I've developed some other passions in life, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
but if the situation is right and it's fun, yeah, I'll keep going with radio. As a business overall, it's definitely changed a lot. It's definitely downsized a lot, and to really make it in radio nowadays is tough. I mean,
That brings me to a good question. When you have really like, what's the best possible thing you can think of when it comes to the whole radio experience? Like everything that you've experienced through radio, what's your like you think of as the best thing you've gotten either out of it or something that has come from radio?
just the ability to relate with people, just be it dealing with callers over the air or meeting people in person, just the energy of being with people and developing the skill of just being able to talk to people and relate has has been a lot of fun because and it makes my day like if somebody wins a prize or I get to play a song request and somebody's happy about it. It's like cool. I get to do something that's really cool that a lot of people haven't had a chance
Brings
to.
joy, basically.
Yeah, it just trying to help make people happy is what I got out of it, and that's what gets me going.
I can relate to that because I definitely feel like if I say something like I've had people tell me, why would you say that? And like as like a fun, like a stupid joke, and
Okay.
it's not funny at the time, but then they'll be driving their car down the road, and then they'll laugh at it later in like a time when it just randomly pops into their head. I'm like, I'm glad I could do that for you because usually you're having a long day, and by the end of it, you're kind of like ready for it to kind of end. And then you think about something like that, and you just get a small little smile or something on you. I just love doing that. I love making people really happy. I started to realize, and it's a good thing with like same thing kind of with you where it relates where you're good at communication and you enjoy helping people really through your voice. And it's definitely a great outlet for you. Now, one of the worst things about radio, in my opinion, it would probably be the improvements. Just like not really, just the upkeep with technology. I would say how physically not just physically but mentally demanding it really is. You're getting all this brand new technology you have to stay on top of constantly. It's the same thing like for computer programmers or something. They're always got to learn the next new thing. Coders, all those people have to learn the next new thing. And for radio, you got to make sure your equipment's completely up to date. You got to make sure you're getting like the newest stuff, the newest downloads, because next thing you know, so many things can go wrong on radio people don't even realize. Technology is beautiful in that way and very, very destructive in that way. Mostly because you can set something up for the whole next day, and next thing you know, you're getting a call at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like my dad's gotten a call before saying you need to come to the station and fix this
Hundreds
because
of times.
everything has gotten destroyed basically.
Yeah, technology is definitely a blessing and a curse, like you say with radio. I've worked on both ends of the spectrum with that. I've worked with the top level systems, like up to date, like, you can just swipe your finger and you've got like your whole set list set up in front of you. You can just bam, bam, couple buttons, everything is done for the entire day. I've also worked in places where you literally have to still use reel-to-reel tape. Like tape where you record a commercial. You know how you edit it? You cut the tape from a certain point.
Oh, Lord.
And then you run that cart. This is how when I first started in radio, this is how we did it. We had these carts that had tape in them, and this is how you edited them. You had to literally cut and paste like tape. It's
a pain in the ass.
It is one of the most unbelievable pains in the pain in the ass that you can think of. And I've also worked in studios where let's just say the upkeep wasn't so good. There's one time I was working in a studio down in Pocomoke in a station I'm not even going to give the time of day to in terms of who they were, where a mouse ran up my leg while I was doing a commercial.
I would have walked right out,
no,
man.
I'm sitting there like, hey, it's time for Aaron's, but and he's like, oh yeah, there's mice in here. And I go back to what's supposed to be the IT room. And there's wires on the floor exposed, water dripping from the ceiling. He's like, watch out, there might be snakes there too.
You know what's also crazy about radio is that I feel like if I was going to be in a radio scenario, I like to have the vibe set for the room. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like when it comes to podcasting, it's not the setup I would like to have, but I like it to be me and the person that talking, phones on do not disturb or phones off really, and just kind of focusing on the conversation of ourselves. I don't like having anything out in front of me that's going to distract me or anything that's going to distract you. And at the same time, I want to eventually have like, you know, a nice medium-sized table where we're both kind of sitting up. Because I feel like when you're kind of down and feeling like super, super relaxed, like if you're like, I would never do it in a beanbag.
This couch is comfortable. Boy.
You be comfortable as much as you want. I don't care, man. You can lean back if you
better
want.
watch out because I might be about halfway through.
But it's like at the same time, it's hard. Like when you're sitting in a beanbag chair and you're trying to talk to someone and have a serious conversation with them, they're finding their thoughts not as quick to be there, I guess you would say. So when it comes to having a radio station type vibe, I believe having the tone of the room, like how Secrets is set up a little bit, where you have the professional microphones and you have, you know, headphones kind of make it, and all these type of recording equipment, even if it's just for show, if it's there, it creates a type of tone in the room where you feel like you're professionally doing something, which they are,
yep.
But at the same time, it creates that vibe and helps reach for further and better questions where, you know, you can ask something or something might come to your mind that you might not have if you were sitting in an alleyway somewhere just trying to record somebody.
No, most definitely. I feel you with that. The more professional the setup, the better you feel about it. But of course, preparation is key no matter what your equipment is. It's just you have to make sure you always know about your topic.
Your P's and your Q's, man.
Yep. You know, get your questions together because, you know, I actually ran like I wouldn't say a podcast, but I did some interview series on YouTube several years back for a website. It was called BloodyKnucks.com. It's something I did on the side where I did YouTube interviews with a bunch of MMA fighters. Like I talked to guys like Tito Ortiz, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Cain Velasquez, and guys like that. Yeah. You know, a lot of the UFC guys I was able to chat with, and what I would do is get some questions from the people on the site that I worked for. I'd be, hey guys, I'm talking to Tito. I'm talking to Uriah Faber. I'm talking to, you know, some of the bigger names here. What would you guys ask? And then the rest, you just got to prepare because you can't be like, so you like to hit people? That's cool. You can't go into something like that. You definitely just got to.
You got to have a little bit of background knowledge on what's going on. I try and do that a little bit, but I actually just ask somebody, like, I'm just going to ask you, you know, what do you do and what are your interests? And then you send me, like, you can send me 2 words saying, I work doing this, doing that. And then I'm also interested in this. And I'm like, okay. And then I just run with it. Either I'll do a little bit of research on the topic. Like I have my one buddy on here that was a vegan. And, you know, I didn't know anything about that. He introduced me to it. I really never even knew what that was. And so he eats a strictly vegetarian, no meats and all that type of stuff. And I just looked up, you know, some stuff about veganism, like the benefits of it and also some things that are bad about it. Also, a lot of my influence comes from Joe Rogan, and he's kind of an anti-vegan person. He showed me a hashtag called Vegan Cat, where there's these people that feed their cats a vegan diet. And even the kid I had on, his name's Matt, he was telling me, he goes, cats are carnivores. He goes, I'm vegan, but your cat will die after 5 years.
You call PETA on people who feed a cat vegan food. You just don't do that.
If you want a fun search, look up their Instagram. It's called Vegan Cat, and these cats live a max of like 5 or 6 years, and you can tell by like the 5th year their eye gets all white and wonky like Bill Cosby, and they're basically out the door at that point. And they're like, "Why did my cat die so early?" Because you're feeding it carrots. It needs cat food or something.
Look, there's Darwinism in life. People who have vegan cats should be involved in that selection at some point.
They're a little bit back on the man chain.
It's kind of like thinning the herd is meant for certain people, and maybe if you're doing a vegan diet for your cat, there you go.
It's the funny thing is, if we were on radio right now and we said this, we'd probably have 30 vegans calling in just complaining about how we're making fun of it.
And I have some very, very good friends who are vegans. They're good people, but they're not extreme like that. The thing I don't like is when you hit the extreme parts of things like veganism and things like that. That's where it gets taken out of context, and it kind of screws everybody else over, so to speak, who actually practices the discipline, so to speak, the right way. They don't get to put their voice out because the idiots kind of ruin it for them.
Well, not only I don't want to get on the whole subject of vegan.
Yeah, we can.
When it comes down to radio, it's so hard not to piss somebody off out there. Like, same thing when I create a podcast. There's gonna be the haters and there's gonna be the people that like it. Yep. And you got to tend not to look at the haters, but that's a big thing with radio. You got to make sure you got to kind of censor yourself too, to make sure you're not saying something inappropriate or saying something that might offend your listeners, especially when you're representing a label or a brand.
Oh yeah.
And it's the same thing. I had I've interviewed like firefighters and stuff like that. They're representing a face of a company, basically our flag in a way. And it's like you're representing either that radio station or that town's, like, someone's tuning in from another place or another state and they've never heard this radio station before. When you're talking to them, it might be a talk show or something. If it's not interesting, they're going to tune off and then never listen to it again, probably. Yeah,
you're definitely going to watch being the first impression of whatever company you're a part of. Like I've done some work with the Delmarva Shorebirds, where I go work with little leagues around the area, and like I've worked with them on their opening days, where I'll go out and do the full announcer mode for the kids. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with the 7 and 8 year old Orioles and things like that. Just try to get the kids to have some fun, and definitely learned over the years. I mean, I've had my wild times, definitely had my wild times over the years, but you learn very quickly that you have to be a proper representative for whoever company you represent. And it's just being a professional. You may not like certain things that you're dealing with. Like you might have to interview somebody you don't like, or you might have to go somewhere that you're like, oh geez, I gotta go here. But you be professional regardless. And that's just the way it's gotta be.
It's crazy because besides doing radio, you also do DJing at night, which is, people would see that as a similar thing when it's really not entirely. There are ways that it is similar, but it's very different compared on to what you have to do. When you're on radio, you're more focusing on the listener. And when you're doing DJing, you're also getting requests. You're also trying to make it fun and entertaining for the crowd. You're kind of a performer in a way. I mean, you are a performer in a way, but you're more hands-on with the crowd rather than if you are on radio, where radio you can kind of set up a playlist and kind of let it go. Like sometimes when we're talking about technology for it, it's so advanced now, half the time you're listening to the people doing a live talk show, they could be in a completely another state, they could be somewhere else. Yep. I didn't know that the people for 93.5, they were all over the place. They're not just in that room. I always thought it was someplace up in Delaware or something.
No, they I know their morning shows out of San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But when it comes to DJing, I'll get into that a little bit. DJing has definitely evolved over the years. Now, I've been fortunate enough to play in a lot of places around this area. I've been DJing, I don't know, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. I started DJing at the Purple Moose, and I've been DJing around this area ever since. I'm not one of the better ones in this area. There's a lot of great guys who can mix and do everything else. But there's one thing that I think every DJ should be able to do in this area, and that's read your crowd. There's a lot of people who think they can be DJs now just by having a laptop and an iPod. There's a lot more to it. Like, you have to be able to look at your room and figure out the songs that people want to hear. Like
that they're gonna get up and dance to.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
you can't be playing, Kid Cudi or something in a room filled of elderly people. They're going to hear polka, or they're going to want to hear some Sinatra or something that they grew up on listening to.
And I've seen some people come in with attitudes over the year of like, I can do this. I don't need to listen to anybody or do whatever. And
they have the tone of, I'm going to play what I like, and that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, and it's like you're one take Jake. See you later.
Yeah.
Because they're gone. And then you got plenty of very good DJs. There's a lot of guys like DJ Adam Dutch, who is a great scratch DJ in this area. DJ Vibe, DJ Rob C. These guys are some of the best mixers that you're going to find in this area. They know how to set a tempo from the word go. They get everybody going. Then you have guys who can mix as well, but their personalities bring out the best. For example, DJ BK, who's one of my other best friends. That guy's personality is one of the best in this area. He and DJ Wax and DJ Batman, their personalities bring you to the room along with their music. You have to have some sort of personality, I think, when you DJ, if you're not an ultimate mixer type.
That's really communication in general. If you're trying to be a good communicator, whether it's radio or DJing or TV announcer, doing something like that, you can't be a wet towel. You can't be the type of person that, even your friends don't really like hanging out with you because it feels like you're just dragging them down when they're trying to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're looking at, you're really setting a name for yourself in that tone of manner, which I feel like is the best possible opposite from radio, where you're representing a company unless you own that company. But when you become a DJ, you're representing yourself. You're putting your name out there. People are going to know you for you. Bars are going to hire you because they know Bigler or they know Tyler. They know the man, like the guy that DJs. It's like they're going to know you for that. And they're going to know if you bring in a crowd or not. They're going to see that. You can't just go in, play the music you want to play, and then there's only a couple people left in the room because they all left because they can't sit there and eat wings while you're playing some music that's trap or techno that they're not into. They want to sit down with their family. You got to also, relate to different aspects of the crowd who's in there. If you got a bunch of 20-year-olds in there drinking, you got to play music that they're going to know and they're going to like.
Absolutely. It's definitely about reading your crowd with that. It's just pay attention. Just pay attention, see what your room is like, and be prepared for it. Because if you go in unprepared, you've seen those Snickers commercials where it's like, want to get away?
Yeah.
I've had a few times like that, even when I was prepared, where it just bombed out.
It's probably the same relation you get if you're trying to kind of relate it to stand-up comedy when someone's up on stage bombing, and then it's like that feeling like I don't want to be here anymore. I just want to end my set, basically. When you're performing, which is what you're doing in front of a crowd, if they're not being reactive to you in a good way, you feel it, and you definitely don't want to keep doing on what you're doing. And it's hard for someone to come back from that, to really turn it around.
Yep.
Which I think as a DJ, you definitely want to have those moments where you do bomb and then you're able to turn it around, because it gives you more experience into the field. If you're going to be good 100% of the time, good for you. But I also wouldn't be subjective to those moments, because that fear and anxiety, it is a motivator, and it is something if you can get back onto the turf. It's the same thing when you're dealing with a dangerous job or something. If that anxiety is always going to be there. Don't ever let it go away. Do you still get nervous going up and DJing anymore, or is it just so comfortable now?
No, I still get some butterflies, especially when I'm playing brand new places. If you don't have a bit of a nerve to you, like, I'm nervous, but that just makes you perform better, I think.
Yeah.
Where you have to just step your game up, make sure you're good to go. You just gotta you can't take it for granted. If you take it for granted, then you've lost half the battle already, because it's kind of like, okay, he's just going through the motions instead of really trying to make it the experience that people would like in the room.
Exactly. You don't want to be too hooked up on like, oh, I got everything in the world. Like, I don't need this or anything. You don't want to have that attitude towards it, but you also don't want to have this super cocky attitude too, where you think you're going to be the best DJ in the world and that type of thing. You want to make sure that, I'm here for you guys, basically. You want to keep that vibe out there, because when an audience feels that they're being accepted by you, they're going to be more acceptive and influential back onto you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I learned early on that, I got cocky one night when I was playing the Purple Moose Saloon, and JJ McKay.
Yeah.
He's practically your dad's radio dad. you know. But JJ was running the Purple Moose Saloon, and I was a rookie DJ, and I had strung together about 4 or 5 songs where I've got the crowd dancing like, yes! Playing like Van Halen, AC/DC, Michael Jackson. Then I played Tracy Chapman's Fast Car.
Oh, man.
And it just, the whole room literally was ready to throw me out the window. There was about...
They turned on you that quick?
There were about 100 plus people at the bar at the time and around the dance floor, and they're just like, boo! Boo! And I just, full-scale panic. I had to pretty much stop what I was doing, put on something I know it was good, and just go from there. But you learn from mistakes like that. And
if I had to ask you what is one of your favorite things about DJing, besides maybe the crowd being, you know, so accepting towards you and feeling like you're on top of the world, but at the same time, what's one of the things that you kind of scares you in a way and also is the best thing? So 2 questions there.
honestly, the crowd is the main thing that keeps me going. Just the energy level in a room, up or down, you know.
And the constant Red Bulls, because
A lot
they got to
of
keep
those.
you going at 2 a.m.
Yeah, yep. But the crowds, for example, I played Berlin's New Year's a couple years ago by myself downtown. And I knew it was going to be a big night. But when you look up, you know, there's a couple hundred people in the streets when you start. And then you look up and there's several thousand people. And you're the entertainment for everybody. That puts some serious butterflies in your stomach right there. But it also just gives you that energetic feeling when everybody is enjoying the music and everything is going great. It's like, wow, this is one of the most cool things you can ever do. You know, that, and I got to introduce a band called Yellow Card years ago.
No way, man. One of my second CDs I think I ever got was a Yellow Card CD. Lights and Sounds.
Yep, Yellow Card played the Delaware State Fair years ago. And we had some people at X1069. We were presenting them that night. And the guy who was supposed to present them just freaked out when we got on stage. And so I just took the mic. I'm like, Delaware State Fair, are you ready? Here we go with Yellow Card. You know, bringing out people and stuff like that. That's what I like to do, is be in front of a crowd like that. And that's Delmarva Shorebirds has been awful fun in that aspect. I actually am enjoying that more than I do DJing right now.
You ever thought about being an announcer, not in a baseball scenario, but like the guy like Michael Buffer that walks in the middle of the ring in front of everybody and goes, and next up?
I would love to. Around here, it's kind of difficult because in mixed martial arts, there's a promotion around here, but that announcer job is locked up. But I've done that before, where I've called boxing matches and MMA matches.
And that's good for you because that's a sport too. So I feel like if you're going to be an announcer in a type of sports scenario, that's perfect for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've gotten in the middle of the Ocean City Convention Center, and I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for some rage in the cage? A few years back, and just stuff like that, where you're in front of a crowd and doing that, it's awesome.
You know, a good key thing about being a radio person like that is also, or being an announcer, is being able to kind of voice change, being able to click yourself into different impressions and different things like that, especially when you do like a Yoda impression or something like that, you know, really can warm up the crowd and get them to be like, you know, crack a joke and laugh. It kind of opens them up. It's kind of like a hug.
Yeah, you know, and I've had to do that before as a host of events where it's just like, calm down. It's like, lady, I know I'm ugly for God's sakes, but stop staring at me like that. You know, I got a face for radio. I'm not going to lie. People wander out there like, what are you, Bigfoot? It's like, Jesus Christ, get away from us.
Well, when you're like basically above 6 feet or 6'4", there's no way we're not addressing it, especially like with my height. I get my height basically from my mom, so I'm like 5'2", so it's, you know, it's different. But like, well, looking up at you, this actually brings a good question on the height. You met someone very famous that I've watched on Netflix multiple times. His name's Wee Man.
That one.
You guys took a picture side by side. Did you pick him up at all, or did he even like? Because obviously there had to be jokes cracked on height.
Oh, dude, I put my elbow on top of him. I, you know, had to get down for a high five. And him, I did not pick up. Now, there was another little person I did pick up, and that picture was on my birthday at Oasis. They had midget paintball going on, and they had a midget performer called Sassy Cassie. And I picked her up and I was like, ladies and gentlemen, I found my new wife. I caught a lot of hell for that picture. They're like, what are you doing? You're like gentrifying little people. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's a joke. She was even in on it.
That's not like
I have friends, and you know Paula Sangalier, I believe.
Yeah, I met her. I haven't seen her in forever though.
But Paula's awesome, you know, and I actually little people are they're awesome folks, man, and I didn't mean any disrespect by it. It was just a joke.
Well, you got to realize that's what also makes it probably difficult to even try and get into a radio business now if you already don't have a name for yourself. Everything's changing so quick, man, in the good ways and bad ways. Society's becoming a hell of a lot more acceptable in ways of being open to more, you know, like things like gay marriage and types of stuff like that. But there's always going to be those certain things you can't say. Now people are becoming more sensitive. People don't want to be known as a boy or a girl. They want to be known as Zim, Zer, Zaire. Like when I get my school emails now, they're not saying he or she anymore because the teacher's too afraid to offend somebody. Somebody can change their gender multiple times throughout the day. There was actually a UFC fighter that got his sex changed into a woman, and he was beating up other women in the cage. And he did not disclose that he was a man before. Luckily, he was stopped by an actual woman. Sorry to say, an actual woman he was stopped by. But I believe we're becoming a little bit too sensitive as a society, and it definitely gets hard to break into these types of things like being able to make a movie. You know, there was Shaun White that got, you know, the famous snowboarder, skateboarder. He got in trouble for dressing up as Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder, a movie within a movie, basically. He got in trouble for that, saying that he was making fun of people with retardation. Yeah. Same thing with Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. That's the last time a white guy's ever going to be really able to play blackface.
Yeah, you know, it's the lay of the land nowadays, and like you say, it's there's a lot of good in the changes, but there's a lot of people who exploit that ever-changing system.
Take it as far as possible.
And it's a slippery slope. You know, my thing is I treat people how I want to be treated. I don't care what you are, who you are, what you do. Just if you're a good person, that's it for me.
I like to treat everyone just the same amount of respect I would like to be treated with. Like, you know, treat me how I would like to treat you. And that's definitely a great way to think about it when it comes to the fact of, I mean, we're all in this world together. We're all living here together. We're not, you know, no one's against, I mean, we obviously have tensions in our country and everything like that. And not to get all political and everything, but, you know, if someone's enjoying something, why are you going to knock it down instead of pick it back up? It's the same thing. If one of my friends has a passion or hobby, I tell them, why don't you come on to the podcast? I will it's not this conversation is between me and you. It's not an interview. You can ask me questions if you want. I can ask you anything. I just want to talk to you. And I also, if you have something, I'm not saying trying to give you a plug or anything, but if you have certain things that, you know, hobbies or passions that you're, you know, someone out there that might be listening might hear about it and might get a good story from you about your life experiences or something, I can help those people out there listening while also talking to you and getting more information on how I can help you.
Well, one thing I did want to ask you is that I'm amazed in the fact is your gym ethic, your workout ethic is unrivaled. I mean, you've been hitting the gym 5 years in a row pretty much now. Every day straight.
Going on 6, yeah.
What got you just into that mode that, hey, this is how I'm going to change my life and this is what I'm doing this. What got you saying, hey, I'm going to do this and make this a lifestyle change and not just a fad? Like, we're in January right now where everybody's like, oh my God, new year, new me. And then they're sitting there eating Cheetos two weeks later on the couch.
This is something I've talked about a few times in the podcast with my friends. It's a blessing and a curse in a way. Yeah. Mostly the persistence to keep going is the blessing and the curse. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, this is the worst time to even try and work out, just because it's
all the new people
that end up giving up after 2 weeks. Now, when I go into a gym, I like to have the mind reference of, or the mindset really, to be more supportive towards people. I also like to do my own thing and make sure I can kind of stay focused on my thing. Don't get me wrong, if I haven't eaten or I'm hungry towards the end of the workout, don't get in my way because I need to get food in me immediately because I'm just hangry. It's like a Snickers commercial.
Oh, trust me, I understand about hangry. People, when they see me, it's like, you know, when Japanese people used to run from Godzilla. They're like, "Oh no, big run, don't eat!" Because I'm sitting there, get out of my way! I want some pizza.
Some wings for me, man.
Yeah.
But it also, I was bullied pretty bad through high school. Definitely about my weight. And it became to the point where I wasn't eating stuff like that. I was just eating an apple a day, living off a small apple a day.
Yeah.
I eat way more than that now. But at the same time, it took so long to build up. And I still have moments where, it's hard for me to take my shirt off and even get into the shower sometimes, even though it's just me in there. I never really feel accepted with the way I look. Even if I have a six-pack now, it's not the fact that it's just, that six-pack is not permanent, man. You really only have that when it's post-workout. You don't have it 24/7. The only times I really ever see it is in the morning or when it's getting near time I usually eat, because when I'm hungry is when I'm shrunk down. But you drink a water, you drink a coffee, you drink a soda, you drink something. It causes bloat. It causes all these different types of things that messes with your mind. It's the main reason why I try and steer people who go to the gym from using steroids or using anything like that. I've been offered steroids before.
Yeah.
I thought about it at one point just because of the fact that how quickly you can get results and how quickly you can get everything you basically want and be like the top notch of what you're going to be ever in life.
Right.
But the bad part is you stop taking those things and you start noticing you're never going to look like that again. It's the same thing I've talked about with my bodybuilder manager. His name's Chuck. Okay. He's on my 4th podcast. But talking to him, he's my 5th podcast. But talking to him about it, he was saying, his body doesn't keep up with how he used to be at a younger age, where his testosterone was at its highest point and stuff like that, and he was in this giant, massive bodybuilding shape. The only thing that's really fit about him now is his legs. He has the most muscular legs I have ever seen, and if I was him, I would just walk around in a Speedo all the time. But all he ever works out now is his legs. He just leg presses, but he trains people and gives people advice. But a lot of people don't realize that bodybuilders have severe, severe, severe mental disorders. Whether they've been going to the gym every day like me, or whether they've been doing it for years and years and years. It's because, I don't know if you know too much about Ronnie Coleman.
I know he's a multi-time Mr. Universe. I know of his accomplishments, but I don't know about his personal side.
He's worked out every single day, kind of like I have, and he has documentaries on Netflix. He's working out with the crutches on your arms that hook around your forearms, or not your forearms, but
the elbows. I know what you're talking about.
He's walking around with those and trying to curl 55 pounds with using that. His body is literally giving up on itself. It happens. I've had days where it's hard for me to get out of bed because I keep going every single day. After doing it for so long, it feels more like when you wake up in the morning and you check your phone. It feels like a job. And for a while there, like a couple months ago, I was having a really tough time trying to get through the workout. I felt like I was just showing up and waiting for the 2.5 hours to end. Now, that's a ridiculous time to work out, but, for 2.5 hours and 3 hours in length. And I tell people, it's hard for me to even try and have a piece of pizza or try and have something like that. I always think of calories. I always think of how much I'm consuming and how much I'm expending. That's just because I've always been afraid of being called. I was picked on my whole life about being overweight and stuff. So when it came down to now, people are like, "You're too skinny." It's like you don't really realize it. You don't get the full connection to it. And a lot of ways you can really conquer that without taking medication is therapy. And that's where I started getting into podcasting. I started noticing this is a type of therapy, not just for me, but for you. And it's like I'm hanging out with friends at the same time I'm also learning and getting more experience. I've picked up a giant fascination with just conversation because I've closed myself off so much for just going to the gym and having a set kind of schedule and lifestyle.
Yep.
And it's definitely a pain, man. I mean, I try and, for my New Year's resolution was try and not kill myself over being 3 hours in the gym. If I'm doing 2, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Or if I'm, I don't think I'm going to go less than 2. But it's just the fact, like, you have a routine and you go in there, you get stuck in a routine, and it ends up becoming like a chore and a job. And the next thing you know, it's just a part of your life. Now, when it comes to taking it the healthy way, going a couple days a week, eating the right stuff, it's all about nutrition. You want to be not eating like crap all the time. Right. You want to cut out a lot of the bad stuff. And yes, like I've brought up before, our economy is in the toilet. So when it comes down to nutrition or types of things, when it comes for a single mother of 5 children trying to raise a family, it's not going to be cost efficient for her to go and buy organic. I don't even buy organic, dude. I buy dollar cereal from Dollar Tree.
Yep.
And I love it. I eat it all the time.
You also think about it in urban areas, in places like that, they're food deserts. You can't find even proper vegetables or fruits and things like that.
But you know what you can find? A McDonald's. On every single block, there's a McDonald's, there's a McDonald's, there's a McDonald's.
Yeah, and that's true.
So if I was going to give a mother of 5 who works 2 jobs and doesn't have time to cook a full meal for her family, am I going to give her 20 minutes to go get all of her kids food and feed them because they're starving right now on only like a $30 budget basically? Is she going to drive all the way to Walmart and go shopping? No, she's going to go over to the fast food restaurant and grab a bunch of fast food meals and start bringing it back, and we wonder why our obesity rates have been spiking so much.
No,
it's $5 for a salad but $1 for a cheeseburger. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not questioning anybody that's out there getting a cheeseburger or, you know, enjoying a nice Whopper every now and again. It's definitely the tastier option. I'm going to tell you, if it weren't for spices or condiments, I would be pretty unsatisfied with myself about eating salads every single day. Every meal I consume, I dump either hot sauce or paprika or something spicy.
You take after your dad in that sense, and that you dump hot sauce on everything.
The one thing I don't do is put ketchup on my eggs. That man is disgusting when it comes to that. He drowns it in ketchup.
There's nothing wrong with a little ketchup.
That's a Baltimore thing or something, man. It's like eating King's syrup. It literally tastes like liquid ass. I've told him that multiple times.
Yeah, but the hot sauce runs in the family because I remember I'd go out and eat with him sometimes. It'd be, you just put half a bottle of hot sauce.
And he likes it, but he can't handle it. He can't handle it. He's like sweating through his eyes. I'm like, dude, stop crying. And he's like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sweating through my eyes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and then nuclear wings or whatever else may come with it.
I think the hottest thing I've ever eaten was a ghost pepper, but I ate the raw material that you use to ground up and make into a ghost pepper. And it felt like I swallowed a lump of charcoal, and literally for hours I felt it slowly work its way through my digestive system. I could feel it burning in my intestines the whole way until I went to the bathroom the next day. I literally could not sleep at night because it hurt so bad.
Well, see, I kind of grew up on peppers, hot peppers and stuff like that because my grandparents, they came from the Great Depression era. So they grew a lot of their own food.
So what I have to ask you is because my grandfather grew up in the Depression, and he taught me really how to eat a chicken wing. And when I eat a chicken wing, do you do what most people that went through the Depression do, and they suck the meat off the bone of the chicken?
Oh no, I'm just like
I go that far as with the chicken because he would put 2 wings on my plate and I would sit there and eat it until it was all gone. If there's a little bit left on there, he goes, "There's a little bit left on there." He sits there and sucks on it.
My thing is, there's not really a technique when I eat stuff, and I think your dad can attest to this. That it's pretty much like Tasmanian devil style. I'm just kind of like, and I'm like, there's no rhyme or reason, but there's bones left. I don't know what I ate, but it's gone. But, but anyways, saying about the Depression is that my grandparents, they had to grow their own food a lot, and my grandfather's from Oklahoma, so hot peppers, something I grew up on as a kid, and got tortured as little kids. He's like, have a little of this on your greens there. He put like the hottest pepper you can possibly think of. Learn to basically have no tongue sensation from like the age of 8 onward.
It's funny because I interviewed this Indian woman for my podcast. She's from Guyana, and her dad grows these peppers himself, like ghost peppers, like really, really hot peppers himself, grounds it up into a powder, and then puts it into a salsa and makes it. And she was like, "You're going to want a small teaspoon of it." And I'm on the podcast, like, just give me the whole thing. I'm a man. I can handle it. Took a giant spoonful of it, and I was like, it's not that hot. And she's like, wow. She goes, you must have some Indian in you or something. Because I'm like, even when I go to an Indian restaurant, I prefer that. I'm like, give me the hottest thing possible. Like, it's going to make your throat bleed. No, it's not. Just give it to me. I don't know if you ever heard of that show called Hot Ones. My buddy ordered the hottest sauce they have. I have it. I finished the whole bottle. I was dumping it on everything, and I was like, this isn't even hot. And he's sitting there taking a drop like, oh, my God. He goes, dude, you're lying, man. You're getting a drink or something somehow. And I'm like, no, it's not hot to me. I can handle really spicy food, and I can handle really, really sour food, which is another thing my dad's pretty good at. There's these things called sour onions.
Oh, I've had it, sour onions.
He loves those things. They're like fermented onions and vinegar, and my grandfather can eat them like an apple. I can do it the same way. I can bite into it like an apple and eat it that way. My dad has to peel it like a potato chip and put it into his mouth and then suck on it because he can't physically handle how sour it is. And I remember when I first bit into it, like, because he told me that that's what his dad does, and I was like, maybe I can do that. And I bit into it, and literally made him cry. He couldn't watch me do it; he would cringe. It's crazy how we have different tastes in food, and we also have different tastes in passions and habits that we all do.
Yeah, the passions definitely vary. I've radio has been a mainstay in my life since I was 19 years old. It's going on 20 years. It's been a big part of it, but I've gotten into different things over the past few years, especially photography.
Okay, that's something I definitely want to talk to you about because I actually didn't know, but I was not to say I was Facebook stalking you, but I was on your Facebook looking through some of your photos, and you had a thing that said, "Look at the month of September." It was one of your posts, and it was you were in the calendar. You took a picture of a bunch of horses on acetique, which is actually probably the photo I'm going to use when I put you on my Instagram as like, hey, this episode's out. I'm going to use that and just put our logo in there if that's okay with you.
Perfectly fine.
But it's beautiful, man. I'm an avid photographer myself. I mean, as far as I go, is putting it on Instagram and adding an effect to it. I've never really gotten into the aspect of getting a professional camera for it. But if you've ever seen my Instagram or some of my Facebook photos, like my cover photos, those are all photos I've taken and edited or did something with just my phone camera. I have a bunch of rocks behind the driver's seat of my car because I did a thing back in the day called Rock Stack Sunday. Okay. I actually told Scott about this, and Scott told me you were his influence into, he says you're the master when it comes to it, when it comes to knowing what to buy and knowing some things.
I'm getting there with it, man. I tell you, I've been probably going on about 5 years really getting into doing this well.
Like me and him have talked. It's the same thing with my fitness aspect of how it is. It's like a trade job. You're constantly learning. There's constantly new stuff coming out. So it's like you're always learning what's different. Someone says, apparently the sugar industry, when it comes down to that, like people say, oh, saturated fat's bad for you. It's actually a lie that was made up by the sugar industry back in the day, just so people would stop eating saturated fat and keep buying sugared foods. It's sugar. It flip flops back and forth. People saying ketogenic's the way to go. Keto's not the way to go. Eating all meat, eating all fat, eating all
paleo diets and things like that.
It's completely on the basis of what works for that person. It's not anything anybody can really take to heart, which is the main thing I try and express to everyone out there. It also does personal training. Any personal trainer that's worth their weight will let you know, like, hey, I can teach you some things that are going to work for you, but don't expect me to work every time you go to the gym for me to be there. That's a waste of money. You get the exercises I teach you, and then you're supposed to stop after a month or so. Not stop working out, but stop working with that trainer. You can't
have it down by then.
Yeah, you can't have it down, but they're there to give you the tools. It's the same thing. A teacher doesn't follow you through all 15 years of your schooling. Nope. They teach you for a year, give you the tools, and move up to the next thing. Nope. You got to be able to work out on your own, even though it's funner to work out with somebody else. But when it comes down to photography, the beauty in that is you're finding the beauty in life, the creative aspects of life. You're using your creative imagination to capture a certain image. I can't tell you how many times I've been skating and with my phone in my pocket, and my friends are a little bit ahead of me, and they're like, "Where's Rob?" And they turn around, and I'm completely taking a picture of a rock in a certain alleyway because the light hits it a certain way. Yep. It's the way my eye sees it. Especially if you catch just a certain angle or a certain view. And this is one question I really want to talk to you about. What is the most memorable moment you've had in your life where you've kind of realized the beauty in the world? And as a photographer, I bet you can have multiple of them, but I kind of want to ask you in the two fields, really, what's one super wonderful moment in just your life in general? And then what's one moment in photography, like a picture you're super, super proud of?
Moment in my life in general.
I call it a transcendental moment. I try and ask everyone that gets on the podcast. A lot of people call it like an epiphany. Mine was, something as simple. I've had it multiple times, but it's like a sunset or sunrise, or the reason why someone climbs a mountain. Mine was sitting in a room like this back in my other house that I think you've been to, the one on Links Lane. Yeah. And with our garage and ping pong table and stuff. But with the sunset coming in, but it's not the sunset, the sunrise, but it's just becoming like where the orange is kind of peeking through our trees a little bit, coming in through the family room. And I'm laying on that couch where I basically slept the whole summer, watching a cartoon and have it all muted. And I could see the little dust particles floating in the window. and it was just like the room was slowly, like you could see the sun rising, so the orange was kind of going up the room and into the whole open part of the house. And I was just sitting there for 5 minutes, like, I don't want to move, I don't want to do anything. This is beautiful.
I would say, in terms of a maybe transcendental moment or cool moment overall, was having my dad come see a couple of my live radio broadcasts when I was doing radio. Just to validate. I mean, I don't have to validate to him what I do, but just to have him see when I have had people. He's come out and watched me DJ a couple of times, and he's come out and he's seen me do a live radio broadcast. And I think probably the funniest thing for me, I was with 93.5 The Beach at the time, and when your dad and I were at 107.7 Hot Country a couple of years back, throwing out the first pitch at the Shorebirds game, and having Dad there, just watching it happen, and then as being a part of the day, and then just having him there when I've DJ'd a few times just to see what I do, and he's like, yeah, he's pretty good at this. My dad's a man of many words with people, but about us, he doesn't say a lot, but he's proud. He'll tell some people about it. And the photography, I don't really think I've had like a transcendental moment yet, because I take each moment, each chance I get to go out as transcendental.
It's really a gift, kind of.
It's a gift to be able to go out to do it in general. That's my escape. Like if I'm having a rough day, like if I've had somebody from my hotel job, just like a manager, calling me all day, bugging me about stuff, or somebody from the radio saying, you need to do this, this, or this, or a DJ kid calling, oh, what happened with this last night? It's like you can leave all that behind, go out on the beach, watch the sunrise, watch the sunset, go out in nature. Like I'll go out to Blackwater Refuge in Cambridge and just walk and go through and watch the animals there, and just that, trying to capture that moment of Zen to relate to everybody else.
It's definitely, when it comes to photography, or really finding just your creative aspect that kind of helps you go through the day and really mellow out.
It does. And I'll tell you though, but you do it in steps. Like people are like, oh, I can do it. It's just give me a phone camera and this. It's that easy. I'm like, no, not necessarily. Like
you got to have an eye for it.
It's having an eye for it. I guess I'm fortunate in the sense people like what they see, what I do so far. But I started out with just a little point-and-click camera, one of those $25 cameras, just the little tiny ones that you zoom in and out. I'm like, all right, started with this, and a few years back, a friend of mine named Kim, she got me into this several years ago. She's like, yeah, go get yourself a little camera and see if you like it, because we were out shooting sunrise one day. I'm like, maybe I want to try this. And then I moved up to the next level camera, which is one of these point and shoots with a zoom lens on it. And then I got into a DSLR camera, which is the ones where you have the interchangeable lenses, and started doing more camera work with that. Where I'd shoot some musicians, I'd shoot people, I'd shoot various scenes in life. And now I've got this full
He's
frame.
talking about a camera, by the way, not a gun.
Yeah, there's no violence here. No violence. We're all just chilling out. And now, I mean, I'm fortunate where I'm actually getting to go shoot people's like engagements or weddings or things like that. On top of that, or I've done some work with Faker's Island for some of their events. And
have you thought about starting your own photography company?
I do have a website, actually, TylerHortonPhotography.com. You can get in contact with me there, and I can do some photography work for people. Like I'm actually going to get more into that this year. It's been kind of growing a little bit. Prints are for sale there. Like I've got my best shots available. People want to buy them on that site, and I'm trying to gear more out of the DJ side of things and more into photography.
So I understand that 100%. I feel like I'm trying to gear out of the fitness aspect a little bit more. I'm trying to at least, not, focus too much on that, and kind of focus more on podcasting, getting a little bit into that. Because eventually I want to have my own studio and have the own vibe set up where we can kind of come in and talk for hours. And I would like to get it down to video, things of that sort. But right now I'm just enjoying what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to take every step really that I can take to go towards that goal. Whether it's spending money on new equipment or just trying to get these connections set up.
Yeah, it's just practice makes perfect, my friend. Just, you just got to keep at it, keep analyzing what you did with it, and keep thinking about how you can do better in any situation. That's one thing your dad would always get on me about is that I beat myself up a lot when I would make my mistakes on the radio. And he would keep me level headed about it and just be like, just take it as a learning experience and roll along.
I definitely I can relate to that a little bit about beating yourself up about stuff because there's sometimes I feel like I didn't do something right and then it's so kind of hard to let it go, but it's something you got to really move on from because you can't be stuck in the mud. It's basically like tar holding you down. And a lot of people like I always feel like you hear someone's story. I always wanted to do this but never kind of pursued it and instead I got a lawyer career, got something more like substantial. I understand the whole aspect of trying to find something that's more stable and giving you more of a basis to kind of have your that's kind of how your parents instill on you, not like to lose your creativity, to make sure that you're set for life so you don't ever have to worry or go through maybe what they're possibly going through. They want your life to be set out. Now I just figured out I just don't want to be the person that grows up to be 70 years old and someone's wheeling me by a window and I'm sitting there reflecting on my life like I should have did this, I should have did that. And I everyone in my family's into music and all this type of things, and I've always had a fascination. I always just wanted, my basic dream was either to just really leave a name for myself. I don't want to be seen as somebody bad. I want to be seen as somebody good. I want to be remembered by, I know I'll be remembered by family, but I also want to be looked at like that guy was famous. Or I know it's a little bit selfish of me to say that, but I've always wanted like this hidden passion for acting, but I was always afraid to get in front of people. And then I took a speech class, and then I realized I was improvising all my speeches. I mean, when I'm doing this conversation, like I said, it's when people like Scott asked me, "Do you have an hour's worth of questions lined up?" I'm like, "Nope." And he goes, "What are we going to talk about?" I'm like,
"Well, you had Scott on here. Scott by himself can turn one question into an hour-long conversation."
And I've had so many people that come on here like, "Do you have questions lined up or something?" I'm like, "Dude, we're gonna talk and we're gonna shoot the shit. We're gonna talk about whatever you want. If you want to talk about life." I had a podcast on Christmas Day with my cousin that I've never met before because
really.
My grandma had 4 kids and one died of cancer when he was 20.
Okay.
And I've never met him before, and he's in his 30s now. He came over. I met him on Christmas Eve. He came over. I was like, we had shrimp, coffee, and I was like, "You want a podcast?" He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." Went up here and we podcasted for 2.5 hours, and I was just learning all this stuff about him. We got into how the world's going to end up turning into the Terminator, and like because of how quick we're all kind of advancing technology-wise. But that's a whole nother
podcast. But it's crazy. Just everyone's fascinations with just life in general, and everyone's own little outlets. Like your photography thing. I would love it if one day you would take me out to one of your photo shoots or whenever you're just going to go shoot some good shots and let me really witness what it's like to use a professional camera. Because the farthest I've ever been is besides using my phone. I started out on little disposable cameras when I went to the Baltimore Aquarium, and I remember getting in trouble for climbing on one of the exhibits because I was trying to get a picture closer to the shark and they thought I was going to fall in. First of all, you can't expect a 7-year-old. You can't take him to an aquarium with a disposable camera and then not really be super attentive to them, especially when they have the escalators I can keep going up and down on. And then there's no really railings on top of the escalators, so I can just climb on top and fall right into the stingray aquarium. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, of course, now they've switched it up just a little bit safety-wise. I'm thinking a few kids fell in with the amount of safety features they have at the aquarium. It's like, you can, don't look the fish in the eye, otherwise you might get like some sort of seizure or something like that. The way some of those tanks that do scare the crap out of me though, but I always got fascinated with the jellyfish exhibit, really, because if you look slowly at them and just watch just the way they move in the water, it's the same thing. Like it's beautiful to really watch. And a lot of people just see like, "Oh, that's weird, that's strange," and they move on to the next thing. I was always kind of sitting behind, and I'm like, "Can we not spend another hour here?" No, we have a set time, we have to be back on the bus. It was always kind of a pain. I do one day when I eventually take a trip out there myself and kind of realize like just in my own little pace of the way, make my own little experience out of it. That's how life is too. Just make your own experience, make it at your own pace. Don't try not to let anybody rush you into doing things you don't want to do. That's a problem that I believe a lot of people who aren't really have a passion for seeing the creative aspect and beauty of life. We're all kind of rushing through, kind of just going on autopilot all the time. Even though sometimes it's nice to be on autopilot, kind of having a set routine of what you're going to do for the day, making sure you can kind of get back and relax. Either we don't want to break out of our shells at all, or we really just want to spend way too much time just not there, not being like in the moment really. And I know it's corny to say like live for the moment, but it really is. You definitely want to, even though I'll never be able to do this, eat slower. You want to enjoy your food. I know my grandma who eats a potato chip one at a time and sucks on it. There's no way I'm eating a bag of Doritos in one sitting. It's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, you can't do that with potato chips with me. People don't leave them in the room for that reason. Like, he's not just going to eat one, he's going to eat all of them. But the fact that she can take the time and really enjoy every single chip and it lasts her like an hour to finish off a small like bowl of 10. But the fact that she can enjoy that, I mean, the best advice I ever gotten when it came to chewing my food slowly was, don't choke. Or also when my grandfather introduced me to Swedish fish. First of all, you eat Swedish fish at the movies is the best movie theater candy, that or the Juicy Fruits, because those suckers, you're a quarter of a box in, and for 3 hours, you're only down 2 of them, and you got the rest of the box in. And then next thing you know, you're still picking them out the next day from your teeth. So it's like, I'm not disagree with you on that one. See, I'm more like the Reese's Pieces one. I used to be snow caps and all that, but I would eat them way too fast. 10 minutes in the movie, I'd be gone. He's like, "Just watch this." And next thing you know, he taught me how to do the Juicy Fruits and stuff. 2 of those things I was sucking on through the whole movie. I couldn't get it out of my teeth. I'm sitting there like, "Oh, I don't know if this is enjoyable, but I still have a treat left." So it's like, I got candy for tomorrow if I need it. Now, movies. Let me ask you something that just for some reason has been on my mind about movies in general. where does the concept of new movies gone? Because it seems like out of every 10 films that you see nowadays, 8 of them are remakes of some sort. I believe everything's coming back, actually. I mean, you look at it that way? That's why I was gonna butt in and even say it. Everything's making a comeback, man. Where our phones went from being super big to being super small to going back to being super big again with a giant screen. There are clothing styles that are from back in the day that are being thrown back in. I still own those clothes from back in the day. Exactly. I'm not lazy and cheap. If you wear them now, you're ahead of the times. But, you know, when it comes to, like, music, like, it's all gonna make a comeback. Everything seems to be like we're throwing out the oldies and bringing them back and then calling it some other new name or something. And I feel like, you know, slang words are gonna start coming back from the old days. You know, hopefully not. That pages ago. Hopefully not. Yeah, that'd be nice, right? But, you know, it's just a weird concept. Like movies, you know, it seems like Marvel's having a giant thing. Everyone's into superhero movies. Yeah. Clothing stores are selling t-shirts that are superhero clothing now. Hell, I work out in a freaking superhero t-shirt. I work out in a Green Lantern t-shirt or a Flash t-shirt. You know, it's everything's kind of it's having its own little popular trends. But I do think everything's coming back. Soon we're gonna be seeing the bell-bottom dresses with the metal cages in them. There's gonna be girls walking around in that. You know, it's all gonna end up just being reflushed through. I think society has a real big problem with making its own mistakes over and over again. Just eventually we lead back to the same thing that we're never really progressing as much as we think we are. But yeah, I can see that. You know, and it's when you do find something new and innovative, it's very hard for people to accept it in the mainstream right off the bat. It's also crazy how something new can come out like later this year that we're like, how do we ever live without that? You know what I mean? Like a lot of people can't remember what it's like to walk into a room and actually turn the light switch on, and that's what scares me about how fast technology's coming out. Because I'm like, all right, look, I don't want Alexa to be able to talk to me when I'm sitting on the crapper or something. I still like to be able to wipe my own ass. But having the bidet would be nice because it would eliminate the cost of toilet paper. Yeah, but still, the Alexa thing is getting kind of creepy. Where you walk in the house and be like, hello Tyler, how was your day? Did you have a problem with Mr. Smith at work? I'm like, I haven't even seen you in 8 hours. Like, calm down. You know, wait, let me take my shoes off. And along that aspect, you know what really is freaking me out? Let's get into Facebook in this sense that. Say, like, right now, we're talking about podcasting equipment. If I have my Facebook on in front of me, I would see 4 ads for podcasting mics within. And you know what that is, right? I actually watched a documentary about this. If you look at my Netflix, I've said this multiple times on here, that my Netflix is conspiracy theory, documentary, stand-up comedy, conspiracy theory. And it's like, if someone had a time set on my podcast on, like, what is going on, what time does he watch this? It's like he's watching 15 minutes of stand-up comedy and he's going immediately to, the Earth is only 10 million years old. And it's like conspiracy theory. Did you know Bigfoot was discovered? And it's like, what the hell's wrong with this guy at 2 in the morning? Why is he not getting sleep? And when it comes to the, God, I mean, it's almost like AI in a way. Artificial intelligence is watching you on Facebook. So the whole thing about this is it's more like the Matrix, to be 100% honest with you. Okay. Now, not that we're all in some simulation, even though we might be. I have no clue. Google does a thing where anything you look up on the internet, anything you search up, anything really gets sent to a type of server database where they use a target advertising system to target you. So if you're thinking about, if you're on your phone, you're searching a certain subject, like, you know, radio equipment or something, and next thing you know, you're getting 10 advertisements for radio equipment. It's because Google sent that information to a thing and is now advertising it and broadcasting it to your phone. They're going to project because they think that's what you're looking for and that's what you're interested in. A lot of people don't believe that they should be able to do that because they feel like their privacy is being, you know, breached a little bit. Yeah, also in the same aspect of the government has ways where they can also listen and eavesdrop onto your phone, kind of using it as a transmitter, where they hear a lot about, and it feels weird like you're talking about a certain subject, next thing you know you look on your phone and there's an advertisement for that subject. Are they listening to you or not? There's actually something that came out on Christmas Eve about AirPods. There's a way that someone can hack that and turn it into a listening device to be able to hear everything that's going on around you. Same thing when you go on the Bluetooth mode and you start talking through it. Okay. And that scared the crap out of me because I do use AirPods when I go to the gym. And it's really hard because we have all these different frequencies and all these different ways to hack into stuff. And it's something I talked about on a Christmas podcast about the little Wi-Fi routers that you can put into your outlet or something that boosts your signal in a certain part of your house. How far is it going to go to where someone can hack that and then be able to send out, because it's all frequencies, be able to send out a signal pulse like an EMP that can hack your nervous system and shut you down, knock you out in your own house. You're just standing up and next thing you know your Wi-Fi makes a certain loud noise and you just fall on the ground and you're unconscious. Someone breaks into your house and steals your stuff. If they can hack a Tesla and crash it into a wall, then I'm pretty sure they can do something like that. And at the same time, trees, nature, it all has electrical impulses. How far till the people that are living an Amish lifestyle, like I'll eventually end up doing if Alexa can control everything in my house? I mean, the fact that if you're sitting by a tree, the government can listen in through the electrical impulses of the tree and hear your conversation even though you don't have a phone or anything miles and miles near you. Yeah, it's getting pretty crazy nowadays with all that stuff for sure. You know, that's what scares me. They're talking about the space tunnel. I don't know if you ever heard about that. Where is that, Elon Musk was talking about that, right? They're building a giant tube that goes up to the basically moon. How? Using carbon fiber or something. And I'm like, how would they do that? Like, it's an idea, but it's still, it's like, how would they do that? Because you gotta think the plane comes by and just kills. Was this something Elon Musk did on his show with Joe Rogan? Because you know they're enjoying the fine greenery that day. Yeah, no, he crashed Tesla stock by like $7 billion, and then not even a week later raised it by $20 billion, so it's not too bad. But yeah, he's creating so much stuff. I mean, he created a flamethrower and then just called it not a flamethrower. You know how that got started? I actually learned this from my buddy who's an IT guy. He came out and told me that he basically was, I'm gonna make this one company, boring company that sells like hats and stuff because he was trying to make fun of Trump. Did it, and then it got real popular. And he's like, I'm gonna sell a flamethrower. And then people are like, you can't sell flamethrower to the public and call it, you can't mail flamethrowers. Okay, well I'm gonna mail it and call it not a flamethrower. And that's what he called the name of the flamethrower, not a flamethrower. And he sold like 150,000 of them, and that was it. That's all they made. Now people have all these flamethrowers, so I'm just, you know, waiting for more videos of people burning stuff with the flamethrower. Definitely don't, you know, let's not burn everything to the ground yet because, you know, you got plenty more podcasting to do. We don't need to burn everything before you get done with your I definitely hope there's more out there. A lot of people ask me why I don't try and, you know, like promote it a little bit more. Like spend the $15 on Facebook. Now that they see I started a podcast, they want me to spend the money to go promote the page. I don't feel like doing that because I like it being spread by word of mouth. You know, I like someone being able to say, hey, you should do this podcast with my buddy. It was a fun experience. It wasn't like you would think it would be. And they're like, I'm not good at interviews. Oh, it's not an interview. You're having a conversation with the guy. He's not even, you know, you can ask him questions, he can ask you questions. Yeah, you know, podcasting, you're doing a very good job with this. In fact, it's just very relaxed and we're just talking. That's a beautiful thing. I don't want to stop people from being themselves. I also, when it comes to having a studio, I like how my setup is mobile. So like if I need to go to somebody, even though it's a little bit more convenient to have you come here in a little bit of a scenario where it's just me and you, I can also go to them. And it's something where I definitely think it's a little bit different that I'm going to keep in there and always kind of have this recorder. If, you know, eventually if I get a studio, if you can't make it to me and I can come to you and you can be more comfortable, if you want to drink, smoke, do whatever you want on my podcast, I don't care. I'm not going to stop you from being real. If you want to not move out of your sweatpants, I don't care. Thank God! Yeah, and it's also why people ask why don't I do video. I'm like, I'm not trying to do video until I produce more podcasts just to see if this really takes off. If you do video, do me a favor. Can you put like a picture from like 2005 when I was about 100 pounds lighter? You know, because otherwise right now I'm like, he's taking up like 2 TV screens. That stops it from being real. We'll just zoom out or something. Well, just, yeah, wide angle. You know, one thing I do want to do, I want to invest in a camera that prints out the picture when you take a picture. Like the Polaroids. You know? And every time I have someone on, I want to be able to take a picture and put it up on the wall so I can have all these pictures lined up in a collage kind of thing. You know what you call it? Fill in the blanks. fill in the blanks for out of the blank. That is a beautiful name. And then also have a piece of paper or something that someone can draw or write down whatever they're doing during the podcast. Not questions or anything, but just write down whatever, even if it is questions. And I can have you sign it at the end and then put it up on the wall too. Same thing kind of with Secrets does with their guitars when they have the musicians come in. But that's eventually down the road once it gets a little bit, like, once I break 100, I'm going to end up, changing up the podcast a little bit. Not with the conversation style, but just like the look of it, the channel, and
that's definitely
so kind of keeping it fresh a little bit too.
Definitely does. But I appreciate you having me on, man.
No problem, dude. I'm actually glad that you took the time to come down here and be on, because I know it's not easy just with life being how it is, and everyone having their own separate things, whether it's work or just personal things like shopping to do. So I appreciate you coming down here, and hopefully it was an enjoyable experience as it was for me, learning about me and just having this conversation in general.
It's all good, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. We've known each other a long time, and it's always good to chat with you, brother.
Right on.